Hello fellow glue sniffers and spruce snippers. Welcome back to Blitzkrieg Modelworks. I'm Bob. You know me as Darkland on the forums. How's everybody doing today? So, as you can see, we are progressing up to the diorama stage. Being in the theme of the beginner's build, something very simple, very inexpensive, done with components that you can get pretty much anywhere. We'll start with the base itself. I just happened to have a solid oak, nicely routed pieces of painter's tape just to keep the edges nice and clean. And as you can see, it has hanging holes in it. Oh, wrong side. This used to have a trophy plaque on it. I got it from a trophy shop that was recycling them. Nowadays they're going to be all like MDF with foil on it, which is like it's got a picture of wood stuck to it, which works just fine too. Excuse me. Alternately, you can use plywood or MDF, although it's rather heavy. Plywood will tend to stay more stable if you use a wet medium on it and it's not sealed. But this is what I had, so I got it essentially for free. So then, after making some measurements, I have made the platform for the leopard. It is a very simple platform, as some of you saw in the pine tree or evergreen tree video. It's made of 3 levels of 1/2-inch styrofoam. Just expanded polystyrene styrofoam that you guys get stuff packed from Amazon and stuff like that in all the time. I've got several sheets of this stuff that I keep just for this. So after figuring out where the vehicle was going to be, what angle I wanted everything at, it was just a matter of cut the bottom, cut the center, cut the very top end, which is almost just a cut off of this, and flip it over. Figure out where our trees are going to go. So as you saw, we're going to have the small evergreen here, we're going to have the tall evergreen there. And then to fill everything in, I used a product called Poster Board, which again I got at Michael's. It comes in about a 2 by 3 foot sheet, and this is a cut off. This is actually off of this side. It's actually, again, styrofoam. This particular one is black. You don't need the black. It'll come in black or white, and then if you want to cover up the white, you just paint it whatever color you want. It may take a few coats, but you can do that. And it has basically construction paper on the outside. Alternately, if you wanted to use just plywood and rough it to shape yourself, you could just use construction paper, and that works just as well. Now, to do the transition from one level to the next, I used just some drywall mud. Now, this is what I had, and this is probably what most everybody will have access to. One of the things when you're putting this stuff down is you have to do it in thin coats. No more than about 1/8 of an inch. If you do any heavier than that, it's going to crack. Anybody that's done any modicum of drywalling will tell you that. Alternately, if you have a place that sells woodland scenic stuff, you can get just this lightweight hydrocal. It's a lightweight casting plaster, does the same thing. I just didn't have enough to do this, so I had the drywall mud kicking around, so that's what I did. So you'll see some lines that I've drawn, basically the curb, and using a 1/35 scale car, I've actually figured out where different lanes would be. I'm toying with the idea of maybe once the snow's in, just kind of painting with an airbrush in different lanes from where the cars are going, and having just the tracks from where the leopard is, you know, showing how much bigger the leopard is than, you know, your average civilian vehicle. Still toying with that idea. Oh, I should say, to glue this stuff together, I used a product called Weld Bond. It's kind of like white glue on steroids. It works really well. Don't use super glue. I tried to use super glue here, and it just melted everything. And I did the same when I tried it in between. It's not going to work. And I say to use this because you can pick this stuff up at pretty much any craft shop, no problem. My poison of choice for doing something like this is a product made by 3M. It comes in a spray can. It's called Super 77 Spray Adhesive. You just hose it on. It's almost like contact cement in a can. So you hose it on, you stick your pieces together, and once they're together, they do not come apart. So that's pretty much it, other than adding the snow. Now for snow, we're going to use, get this out of the way, plain old baking soda. The trick is you don't just sprinkle it all over, because it's going to look like crap. It's going to clump everywhere. What you want to do is use a sieve. Now what I do is I use a bowl and I dump some into the sieve over the item while I'm sifting. I know this is hard. Just adjust this up a little bit so you can see a little better. That nicely sieves out. The finer the sieve, the better. Now, how well does this work? On something like this, you got to move fairly quickly. But if you remember our pine trees, here is our large tree and the small tree with some snow on it. Now, this turned out pretty well. And this I just actually did a very diluted, I know in one of the videos I think I said a 50-50 mix. It's more like a 5% of this to water, or it's not going to come out of the sprayer. And I just used a regular sprayer. This is usually what my accelerator for super glue comes in, and I had an empty one, so I just mixed it up in there. I'll have to put it into a different container if I want to keep it and clean this out, or else it'll just glue the whole gateway shut. So it works pretty easily. It's a little bit of a pain to try and show you, especially with this setup, because it's one of these things where I almost need 3 hands to do it. But I'll try. Bear with me. Hopefully I don't screw this tree up. So I'm going to shake it up really good and make sure this stuff's well done. Just spraying a few mists into a garbage can to make sure that it's good to go. I'm actually just going to go off camera just for a second, spray this down. It's just a light misting. You don't need a lot. Okay. Now here's point. Oh, one. Sorry about that. Just to make cleanup a little easier, I just quickly put a glove on. Like I said, you got to work quick because this stuff dries fairly quickly. As you can see, once you do that, it kind of stays in there. So you just want to lightly shake it, lightly sprinkle. Whoops. I guess it's a little more than lightly. All over. And Merry Christmas. Let it sit for a minute. Tap off the excess. And we can blow some of this off once it's dry. I'll probably actually put the side with less snow towards the road. Might actually see if we can sprinkle some on here. I don't know if we... Looks like it didn't get a lot of... Yeah, that'll be okay. I can do a quick spritz once everything else is dry. And that's how easy it is. I spritzed on a fair bit of stuff, fair bit of the glue. I'll do the same on the road because I want to get enough in there for the tank tracks to kind of show up in the snow, but not so much that it looks like the road never gets used. And in order to do that, I don't want to get a whole bunch of baking soda into the styrofoam, so I'm going to use this same green painter's tape that I used on the base here on that. And I'm not really worried about the inside because I can just use some black Tamiya XF1 coat up whatever I don't want seen. It'll be a little dicey with the snow, but it'll work. Okay, so I'm just going to cut away, and we're going to do this because it's going to be quite messy. There's going to be a lot of prep work to be done. I will try and cut back and show you a little bit before I move on, because I'm going to have to cover this whole table. This is going to be very messy, but it's very simple to do other than that. Back in a sec. Okay, we are back. I had to adjust a few things here. So I have done a fairly liberal spritzing all over the base with the Weld Bond / white glue and water mix. As you can see, I've got painter's tape over it. I didn't wrap it around the edges because it is just construction paper, and I was afraid it would perhaps damage it. We've got our sieve loaded up. I'm just going to try tapping it very lightly. Now don't be afraid to put it on fairly heavy. Interesting that we have chunks right from a sealed box, which means it got moist at some point. I want to get a fairly heavy coating because almost all of this is going to come right off. Now if it's not thick enough for you, lightly spritz again and spray some more on. Oh, I'm going to try and it's back in our metal bowl here. It does not want to come off. Ooh, probably would have been better off just to leave it on thick. Well, we'll do a little more spritzing. And by the way, do not try to reuse this baking soda for baking. Keep it specifically for modeling. I'm sure the missus or significant other will not appreciate your frugal endeavors. Again, wow, there's a lot of big chunks in there. And that's about it. You just keep going. There are some additional things I'm going to be putting in. I've got some tree trunks here. These are just, this one's part way through painting. This one basically just started a pre-shade. These are, I believe, put out by Verlinden. Don't quote me on that off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure these are Verlinden. And these are actually recasts that I did myself, just playing around with casting, seeing what I could and couldn't do. This one, not all that great. You can kind of see there's tons of air bubbles in there, which is a big problem. This one wasn't too bad. But this one is going to end up going down here somewhere. This one will go up into the back more or less. And I've also got some road stanchions, just to mark where the road ends. And that's really about it, other than the two trees, the two trunks, and the road stanchions. The rest is going to be, pressing in the tank tracks and some road tracks. I'm going to have to rig up some wheels appropriate sizes and run them across. And then do in some of the staining for the road, because I want the road to, the asphalt road to kind of show through. I will have to fix this big gap here. Probably just keep sprinkling this in, and I'll lightly blow. I might actually use my airbrush as an air gun to blow this stuff around in my spray booth, because this is, you don't want to be inhaling this. It doesn't taste or smell all that great. Very soapy. And then once I'm done, happy with the results, you give it a light spritzing, not with the white, the glue and water. You do it with hairspray. Just a very light spritz with hairspray, and that fixes everything into place. So I'm going to cut away now, and I'll do most of the other work, and hopefully I don't botch this up completely, and we'll be back right away. And we are back. The baking soda went down quite nicely. I did put it down with some hairspray, just some regular plain old finesse hairspray, cheap stuff from Wally World. When you put it down initially, you have to do several very light mist coats. The pressure from the can actually blow chunks off if you're not careful, which happened to me a couple of times, so I had to redo a couple of spots. It turned out pretty well. I don't have a lot of room to move stuff around on this little table. I did. Let me move this back a bit. I did put in some tracks. I didn't bother with the road wheels and that. I did try, and I just couldn't get it to look like I wanted, so I just went with just driving by itself. First vehicle down the road. The trees are done. They're not glued in, which is why they're kind of bouncy. They will get glued in here shortly. I'll tidy up some of the black poster board a little bit, but overall I'm quite pleased with how this turned out. It is still fairly fragile. It'll take a day or so for the hairspray to completely cure up and all the moisture to come out. And one thing with this is, if you're going to do winter stuff like this, it will get dusty. Try to put it in a dust-free cabinet if you can, or use like a very, very light touch with like a big makeup brush. I picked up, again, one of these from Walmart to do very, very light dusting. Some guys will use, I don't know if you can get them anymore, they used to have camera brushes, which were kind of the same thing as this, but with like a little squeeze bulb. So you could blow the dust off camera lenses, and it used to work pretty good for models too. So this will probably be the last actual build video. Yes, I still have to put in the tree trunks. I'm not doing anything more than I've already done on the vehicle. A little bit of dry brushing, no oils, nothing fancy, nothing special, and most of it's going to be covered up with snow anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. So the next video I'm going to be putting up, hopefully by a week or so, will be the final reveal. So everything will be in place. There'll be a title placard down here. All the tape will be off the oak. This will actually be glued down. Whoops, see how fragile that is? Comes right off. I'll have a little bit of very light weathering done on the vehicle. All the periscopes will be painted, things of that nature. So again, thank you very much for your patience. Any questions, constructive comments, down in the comment section below. And thank you very, very much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more updates. Thank you much, guys.